Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. For those who have seen a video in the past, well, in that case, welcome back to the channel. I'm Andres, welcome to AA Sports, and today I'm going to be talking about club and international football, or for folks depending on which country you live in, soccer as they call it. We got MLS tension, we got the Liga MX Clausura and the winter transfers coming up, and a lot to talk about there. And the AFC Asian Cup tournament starting soon, this weekend, in fact. So let's get right into it. In December, the MLS announced it would not send its first teams to the US Open Cup in 2024, and instead have their MLS Next Pro teams, which are the reserve teams for the MLS main squads, enter and play the tournament. The United States Soccer Federation responded to the MLS's request by saying, quote, Major League Soccer has requested to allow MLS Next Pro teams to represent MLS in the 2024 US Open Cup. After thoughtful consideration, the request has been denied. So, the U.S. Soccer Federation has blocked MLS and its teams from withdrawing and having the reserve teams play in the U.S. Open Cup. And this has caused some tension between the MLS and the U.S. Soccer Federation. It's made big news because obviously the U.S. Open Cup is our domestic cup. It's essentially in the U.S. what the FA Cup is to England. So this was a big story. The MLS responded to the U.S. Soccer Federation's decision saying, quote, Major League Soccer believes that there are several essential goals and concerns that must be addressed in connection with the tournament, including developing young professional players and providing them with greater opportunity to play before fans in a meaningful competition in a tournament setting, prioritizing player health and safety, reducing schedule congestion for MLS clubs, and enhanced investment from U.S. soccer. MLS is committed to finding a viable solution for the 2024 tournament and is working to find a pathway that addresses its goals and concerns. Moving forward, MLS will remain focused on increasing opportunities for up-and-coming players, a key component of the league's player development strategy that ultimately benefits the U.S. national team program. So that was the response from the MLS. This little feud has put into question whether this feud over the leagues, or between the league of the MLS and the U.S. Soccer Federation and the U.S. Open Cup, will this feud be long-term? And if the U.S. Soccer Federation's decision, was it the right call? My take as someone who follows it, and as you see behind me is an Earthquake supporter, I think this was the right call because this move by the MLS to have the reserve dogs, the MLS Next Pro teams, in the tournament was, in my opinion, a move against the U.S. football asset in their Division 2 and Division 3, the USL teams, for example. And the USL is growing and becoming more competitive. More people are beginning to watch the game slowly. This was one of the best decisions they could have made in terms of protecting the competitiveness and the prestige of the US Open Cup. I also am happy because this decision does give the opportunity for the second division teams, the lower tier teams, third tier, fourth tier, like the USL, Sac Republic, Monterey Bay. It gives these teams to compete, an opportunity to compete with an MLS team and have, a chance to be competitive and even win against them. And if not, hey, their team still gets some recognition and time in the spotlight that grows their club and therefore their league. This is why the English FA has the FA Cup and the EFL Carabao Cup. It gives lower tier teams opportunities to compete with the top teams, with the Man City, the Liverpool, the Man United, and it gives that them the chance to grow their skill level, and also you get these David versus Goliath moments where, hey, David can pull off an upset. Honestly, the U.S. Federation was, in my opinion, also very nice and generous in their ruling here, because they could have absolutely brought the house down and been a hell of a lot harsher. They could have done a Division One sanction and essentially stripped the MLS of their top tier title, because part of the rules of U.S. football / soccer, again depending on what country you're in, one of the rules of U.S. football is you have to compete in the U.S. Open Cup to be considered a Division One team and or league. And the response to the Federation's ruling by the MLS is definitely one that can be criticized as well. In terms of the MLS's response, which is definitely flawed. I would say the big criticism of the MLS's response is how they argued their request to pull out of the Open Cup was for fixture congestion. That is very hypocritical, because the MLS was the one that pretty much created the Leagues Cup and specifically its new format, and they sure weren't worried about fixture congestion there. So is it because of the quality of competition that, like, oh, we're playing against weaker teams, so what's the point when it will be MLS teams dominating, Well, that's not what New England Revolution said when they lost to the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Or that's definitely not what my San Jose Earthquakes said when we lost to Monterey Bay. And in fact, in last year's tournament, Pittsburgh and Birmingham made it to the quarterfinals last year and were competitive even when they lost and were eliminated. So that idea of poor competition quality, that's completely false. So that leads to the question, so then why else would the MLS try to pull their main teams out of the U.S. Open Cup? Fixture congestion, you can look at how they made the Leagues Cup and debunk that argument. Quality of the competition, well, we saw Birmingham and Pittsburgh, so that's clearly false. There is the Davids that can compete with the Goliath. We've seen that already. So why would they try to pull out of the tournament? From what I've seen, the only other reason is really controlling money. With the USL and lower divisions slowly growing and slowly but surely becoming more competitive, I do think the USL is trying to stop that. Not seeing them as really a lower tier that they can recruit from, but more as a business rival in this case. Because when you look at the MLS and its teams, outside of the CONCACAF Champions, which is run by the CONCACAF, only a few teams are invited to compete in that via the CONCACAF's qualifying criteria for the tournament. The MLS competes only in tournaments that they have a majority or full control of, like the newly formatted Leagues Cup. So I think the MLS is a little annoyed about having to play in a tournament where they don't have control or heavy influence in its format and revenue. And look, while the U.S. Open Cup in its format can be flawed, I guess, in a way that maybe the format can be changed while still having the teams from all divisions compete, for an MLS team to completely withdraw is, in my opinion, just a terrible idea. I think that would kill the U.S. Open Cup as it is, especially when I think it's also a bad idea because the tournament champion gets a CONCACAF champion spot. They get a spot in the CONCACAF Champions Cup where they can compete to be the best team in North America. So, I don't know why an MLS team would want to reject that opportunity as well. The Leagues Cup also has CONCACAF champion spots to the winner, runner-up, as well as the third-place finisher. So I guess maybe the MLS sees that as like a bigger opportunity with the 3 spots rather than the US Open Cup with just its 1 spot to the champion. Still, as for right now, I think the best solution is to do what teams in England do in the EFL Carabao Cup. The top tier teams still compete, and they decide how important the tournament is to them. If they see it as important, they can and usually will put their A teams on the field. If they see it as less, they will put their bench players or some of their reserve guys in. If they see it as a good time to experiment and have a mix of A-team, bench, or reserve players on the field, they will do that. They will experiment and give newer, younger players an opportunity with some of the A-team players that we see competing every weekend in the Premier League. In my opinion, that's how it should be. If the MLS teams decide to put their B or C teams out there because they don't care about the tournament, oh well, another MLS team certainly will, or maybe a USL team or team in a lower tier rises to the occasion and takes that Conca champion spot and the trophy. So how teams will approach the US Open Cup in 2024 will be very interesting to see. Moving on to more football news. The Liga MX Clausura season is going to start this weekend. We got the first games on Friday. They've had a lot of big news in terms of the winter transfer window. Brandon Vasquez, who was playing for FC Cincinnati, he left the MLS from Cincinnati and will now be a new star forward for Club Monterrey Rayados. With that, Rogelio Funes Mori, who has been their star forward for many years now. Funes Mori and Monterrey have officially parted ways, and Argentinian-Mexican footballer who played for the Mexican national team in the 2022 World Cup is now going to be playing with new up-and-coming national team player Cesar Huerta and Pumas UNAM. Yeah, just like that, Pumas' offense has gotten stronger. Chivas, the team considered Mexico's club, the most popular team in Mexico, is making moves in the transfer window. And, get this, Chicharito, his name has been floating about in terms of the winter transfer window with Chivas. Chicharito Hernandez has said yes to a possible return if presented the opportunity. And honestly, I hope that's true. I think it would be awesome to see him retire at the club of his home city where he started his career. I think he could be competitive and score goals in a final run with them. It would be cool to see him play for Chivas one last time, kind of like Rafa Marquez did with Atlas. Speaking of Atlas, the other Guadalajara team, they signed John Murillo on a 1-year loan deal from Atlético San Luis. Then there's the Alexis Vega story. Okay, where do we start with this? So, no club has approached him or Chivas to sign him. To no surprise, this was a quiet winter transfer window for him, and it's likely going to be the nail in the coffin on his career as a footballer. For those who don't know the context building up to this winter transfer window and the talk about whether he would get this, second chance, la segunda oportunidad. In October last year, during the Apertura 2023 tournament, a scandal rocked the Chivas organization with 3 of their players, one of them being Alexis Vega, being banished from the main team squad. While the 3 players' contracts were, I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the players' contracts was terminated. At least 2 of them have not been. But in terms of Alexis Vega, while his contract has not been terminated, given he has been ousted from the main squad, it essentially does feel that way. It feels like getting fired, essentially, and having your contract ripped up. This came after the players failed to comply with the guidelines established in the club's internal regulations after being involved in... They were involved in a prostitution scandal where they invited and brought women back to the team hotel in Toluca after their 1-1 draw against the Red Devils. Yeah, and to make this worse, this isn't the first time Alexis Vega has been punished by the club's front office. During the 2020 Apertura, Vega broke the club's COVID-19 rules after taking part in a party with former teammate Uriel Antuna and posting videos on social media of the two drinking alcohol together. These videos and stories about him partying have existed and plagued him throughout his tenure with Chivas and really throughout his entire career. And at this point, his off-field behavior began to raise concerns regarding it possibly affecting how he played on the field, because in his final 10 to 13 games with Chivas before the hotel scandal, he had more yellow and red cards combined than goals and assists, which is definitely not something positive to have on your stat sheet. The only reason his ousting hasn't happened earlier is because then coach Vječko Paunović was reluctant to really bench or punish him for his off-field behavior, and the front office in October finally had enough. Most players with motivation would look at a slump, with having more yellows and reds than goals, yellow and red cards than goals. They would look at that kind of slump they are in, and they would watch tape, practice more, and they would think of how they can improve and prove in their game, and find that mojo back. Get back in your prime of scoring golazos on the field and making the crowd go wild. Instead, he was out partying. There were rumors and word about him rejecting to play for Wolverhampton. Yeah, the Wolves in the Premier League. Because of his, quote, love for Chivas and the club. Clearly that was BS. It was clear because he didn't have the motivation and wanted to party. And he knew that a team in the Premier League, the strongest league in the world, they wouldn't let him behave like that. They would want their players to, have time to relax, but, be disciplined off the field and be smart about their decisions, because they know they would know how important they are to the club and that every game in the Premier League is important. He would have never been allowed to party the way he has been up until now in the Liga MX if he were playing in Europe. That's why he never made the jump to Europe that he once had the potential for. Because most other big clubs, the elite Liga MX clubs, European and even MLS teams, for crying out loud, after the first incident, he would have been benched, and if he did it again, they would have terminated his contract without a doubt. Chivas, they gave him multiple chances, excused him for his actions, and now it's well past the point of no return. Sadly, this has been a problem for Chivas over the last decade, with the team being criticized for their lack of discipline off the field. And now the front office is going to have to make major changes to fix the team's reputation, starting with their new coach, who will need to be tougher on the players, make sure they are being smart off the field, as well as on the field. Because of this, I don't think Chivas will be as competitive, and I think they will be looking more to rebuild and get adjusted with the new coach than thinking about making a deep run in the Liga, in the Clausura. As for Alexis Vega, if there is somewhere a club that does want to sign him, I think Chivas should terminate his contract and let him leave. It would be a sigh of relief, I think, for the club. And I think Vega should take it as a final payday and, just stick it out, be smart, play, finish the contract, take the money, and then retire and party like he's done for most of his career, because at this point, his time in Europe is gone. His opportunity for Europe is gone. I mean, his time with the Liga MX looks to be over, and along with certainly any opportunity with the Mexican national team. So, yeah, just it's disappointing. That's all you can really say. It's a shame. It's disappointing. At just 26 years old, due to poor behavior, his career might be over. Yeah. What could have been, I guess. Now, still within Liga MX, moving on to news about Chivas' rival, my Club America. Woo! Yeah. So, with club icon Miguel Layun retiring after the Apertura, Las Águilas are looking to strengthen their defense once again and have made, to say the least, a very, very surprising signing this week. Club America has signed the left back Cristian Chicote Calderon from Chivas. He is remembered league-wide for his hat-trick performance in the Clásico Nacional in November 2020. Scored 3 goals. I mean, America got absolutely spanked in that game, and he had a partidazo. He had one heck of a performance. However, over the last 2 years, he's been really despised by Chivas and their supporters for his poor behavior off the field, specifically due to constant parties with sex workers and his alcohol use. And during the Apertura in last year, he got kicked out of the main squad, and his contract was later terminated for being one of the 3 players, along with Raul Martinez and Alexis Vega, involved in the prostitution scandal after their game in Toluca. With his contract terminated after that scandal and being teamless since October, America signed the left back as a free agent. So, Chicote Calderon, new player for Club America. As an America fan, why? Yeah, I don't really like the signing. Look, while Chicote may be good, while he may have talent, why sign another left back who has had issues regarding discipline and poor behavior off the field? If he is to get playing time and be a player consistently getting minutes, they better keep a close eye on him on and off the field. If he has another scandal like with Chivas, in my eyes, bench him or échalo, terminate the contract. Because we have the player pool already to replace him if needed. With how good the team has been before signing him, and with the Conca Champions coming up, the last thing Club America needs is another scandal with poor behavior off the field. If they want to remain an elite team, they want to avoid that in every way possible. My second reason for why I don't really like the idea of signing Chicote Calderon. Why sign him when we already have Luis Fuentes and a younger left back in Salvador Reyes, who has appeared in 16 matches in the Apertura? However, the problem with Salvador Reyes is we don't give him a lot of minutes. He hasn't played a lot. In fact, during this winter transfer window, he tried to go out on loan and get minutes somewhere else. And Club America said no. They rejected the offer. So, I mean, I hope he gets more. They need to give him more playing time. He's a young player who can, I think, be more productive than Luis Fuentes, who is nearing retirement. I would rather see Jardín develop Reyes and give him playing time than sign a player who, based on his past history, could potentially be a bust and could cause problems for America off the field. Yeah, if I were the coach, I would have rather taken Salvador Reyes and give him minutes and develop him, because he is a younger player who could be on the national team. I would rather see him play than Chicote, who after the scandal he's not gonna be on the national team. Regardless, the signing is already official. I hope Chicote sees this as a chance to be better. This is a second chance. Because if he doesn't perform well or gets into trouble outside of the stadium, yeah, without a doubt, he will end up with the same fate like Alexis Vega. In terms of the season and who the favorites for the Liga MX Clausura are, I think it will once again be a two-horse race like the Apertura. Tigres and America are just so much better than the rest of the league right now. And I do think it will be a collision course between the two clubs. America will be looking for the Bicampeonato and are also going for the Conca Champions this year, as they will be competing in that. And I think they will be looking to prove that the Apertura final, the final of the Apertura season in 2023, that their win wasn't a fluke in it. America will without a doubt want to prove that they can win a tournament outright and not have to hope that a team doesn't self-destruct like Tigres did. Tigres, on the other hand, they are one of the wealthiest teams in the league. They got money. They're like the PSG. They got in League One. They are like PSG. They have the salary capital. They got money to spend. So they're able to fund a championship team pretty much every year. And last year they fell short again by essentially being their own worst enemy. 2 red cards that were uncalled for in the final, and those 2 red cards resulted in the scoreboard just being busted wide open, and America won 3-0, 3-1 in aggregate. Yeah, they pretty much destroyed themselves. They'll definitely look to change that and not be their own worst enemy. And I do think that if they remain cool-headed and consistent like they were in the Apertura, or for most of the Apertura, if America doesn't win the Clausura, I think it will likely be Tigres. I think with how much better these two teams are, it will be really between them, and any sort of anything short of winning it for either team would feel like a failure. I think both teams actually are competing in the 2024 Conca Champions, so they'll be competing in that and as well the Clausura at the same time. I think anything short of winning at least one or the other for both teams, I think will feel like a failure. Because those two teams, if you look at all the teams in the CONCACAF, those two teams are just so strong and so elite right now. And they are very much in form with depth in their roster. For America, I think it's also worth noting that Club America, along with the other Mexico City club, Cruz Azul, La Máquina, they will be playing the Clausura in Estadio Ciudad de los Deportes, which was actually the former stomping ground of Cruz Azul. It was previously known as Estadio Azul, and up until 2018, it was the home stadium for Cruz Azul. They will be returning to play in that. Both teams will be playing there during the Clausura, as Estadio Azteca will be shutting its doors as it is undergoing renovations for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So it will be interesting to see how Club America adapts to not playing in their prestigious home ground that is Estadio Azteca. And if they do win the tournament or the Conca Champions outside of their home ground, boy, America, that would be one way to make a statement. So we'll see. It'll be fun to watch. I'll definitely try to tune in as much as I can. If not for the Clausura, definitely the Conca Champions, as that is a big tournament where we will have clubs from Costa Rica, a club from Suriname, Mexico, Canada, US. It'll be the best in North America competing in that one. So definitely stay tuned for that. Now, in our final bit of football news, we turn to international football as the AFC Asian Cup begins this weekend. Qatar, after hosting the World Cup, will be the host nation for this tournament and will play the opening match against Lebanon. It will be interesting to see how Qatar performs in this tournament, as they do hope to have a better performance than they did during the World Cup, where they finished last in their group and lost all 3 games. In their 2 friendlies, they looked a little shaky, as they did win 3-0 versus Cambodia, but then lost to Jordan 2-1. In the group phase, they will be grouped with Lebanon, Tajikistan, and China in the group stage. Tajikistan has won or tied all of their last 5 games and look to be a tough contender in Group A. While both China and Lebanon have been a little shaky like Qatar, winning 1 and losing 1 of their last couple of international friendlies in preparation for this tournament. I think in this group, it will be tougher for them. I think it will be tougher for Qatar, and they will likely finish second in the group. I do have them losing to Tajikistan, but nevertheless, I still see them doing enough to get to the knockout phase. I think Tajikistan will win the group with their good performances and momentum on their side. As far as the overall tournament favorites, here we go. I do think the favorite and the team that will most likely win is Japan. Entering this tournament, they have been one of the big favorites among sports journalists and people who follow it. Japan has been incredible over the last year and a half, and it started really with them winning the group in the World Cup and then being competitive in the round of 16 up until penalties, where they showed penalties was their weakness. But ever since then, they have just been incredible. They have won Japan has won all of their last 10 games, including one versus Germany, and all of those 10 wins were by 2 goals or more. So they have been incredible. The only other team that looks close to being as competitive is South Korea, but they still lost a game versus Peru and only managed a draw against Wales. So right now, Japan is the clear front runner. I would say Korea and Japan are the 2 teams to watch in the tournament, with Japan being the most feared team in the tournament. Japan is currently on top of their group in World Cup qualifying. They have been in form, just dismantling other World Cup teams in friendlies from Tunisia, Canada, and Germany. And they have a very talented roster with a lot of stars playing in Europe. Tomiyasu, Nakamura, Morita, Mitoma, Kubo, the list goes on. They have a roster with some depth. They have a strong roster with depth. A lot of European talent. It will be exciting to watch them in the tournament, and given they are the favorites, it'll be interesting to see how far they go and maybe hopefully go all the way. I'll be rooting for Japan. Well, with that is all the football news this week and during most of winter. That's all for me in this episode. I will have more content coming up with the NFL and the playoffs, which also start this weekend. I'll talk about my favorite team and my predictions for how I think each team in the NFL playoffs will do. So do stay tuned for that. Leave a like, leave comments. What is your opinion on the Liga MX, the MLS beef, the winter transfer market, your favorite clubs, who your pick is for the Asian Cup? Definitely give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.